Hello, welcome back. It's another week on Out on the Line podcast, and it is week 159. I'm Jeff with my co-host Alex. As always, Alex, how we doing this week?
Jeff, I am feeling like school in summertime. No class. I'm ready to get down and dirty on this podcast, baby. How are you doing?
I'm doing very, very well. That was excellent. That was an excellent
you.
intro. I did not see that coming. Folks, make sure you right off the top here, like, subscribe, comment down below. We got a few things to talk about this week, but we wanted to get that out of the way because we feel like we could use a little more effort on your part. We're this close to 2,000, and with your help, we can get there. So this week, we're going to talk about two different albums. So hopefully this gets us over the hump. We're going to talk about the Jamie XX album, In Waves. We're also going to talk about Griffin Williams Sherry and the 100 Mile Wilderness album. One band you may actually, I don't know if a lot of people have heard of either of these. Probably more likely to have heard of the first one. But Jamie XX is from the XX, who makes some great little like kind of house music, like lo-fi type stuff. I really, really have enjoyed everything of the XX I've listened to. And honestly, I think this could have been another XX record because there was not a whole lot of difference. I don't know why this was a solo one, but what was your experience with the XX before this?
Well, my experience with old Jamie XX was and XX was truly limited to there's one song, it's called like Juanita or something off of In Color, the last one that came out a couple years ago. That's it that I'm conscious of. I don't even know the fucking name of the thing. And it's like Laurel, Lupita, I don't know. It's got some like very like distinctive name. Can't remember what it is. That's kind of like faint and damning praise. I'm sure I know I've seen it fly across my Spotify when I'm listening to other things. So I know that I've absorbed Jamie XX through some kind of osmotic process, but I can't say I've ever like dedicated my time to an album until now or like specifically sought it out. And then answer for me, the double X, XX, whatever we're going to call it, the double deuce.
Some people are going to be mad either way. So we should just take your best shot throughout the whole podcast and we're going to be fine. We'll get through this.
They're going to be mad because I'm just basically going to be like Dwayne The Rock Johnson the entire time we talk about this, like peak rock, where it's like, don't be afraid of the Poontang Pie, Michael Cole. I'm just going to be sitting here like not cutting a promo, but having that kind of attitude about it. I'm not going to worry about offending Jamie XX people. Okay. Not doing it because should not bury the lead. It's just not for me. This is not for me. We'll get into that, but like, I feel like this album is going to be a tale of who's in whose lane more so than the other. And so for me, I really feel like this is more your area. Like this is more where you shine. So talk to me about your context for this.
Yeah. So I think both of us kind of fumbled the ball here, and like I should have known this better because I think I'm a little more familiar with them in how much sampling it's kind of like almost all sampling, how much of that there is with the XX and how much of that I should have expected, because we were going to do this album initially as a like prime time, the album we were talking about for the episode, and it's just not enough there. I think because there's so much sampled, there's I think a lot of the songs are great. Spoiler alert, I really did enjoy listening to the album, but I absolutely hear what you're saying where there's not a lot to like dig into here. I think it's equivalent to me of almost like those like ransom notes you'd get where it's all the letters cut out and pasted on a page. Like that's kind of the sense I get from this now. I think there's a little more narrative to this than I think I'm giving it some credit for. But truly for me, if you want like house beats, you want kind of dance songs, you want something that's interesting but not like that deep that you need to really pay that much attention to, like this album is great for that. I think if you're looking for something that has a lot of kind of, I guess, like linear songwriting, maybe like a cohesive kind of theme throughout the album, you're not going to find that here. I think Jamie XX is just in a sense is a DJ. And when I say that, not the kind that just like presses play, like not that kind of DJ. Just somebody that takes a lot of ideas and mashes them together. You know, I've enjoyed listening to a band called Girl Talk. I guess it's just one guy,
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
But you know, that's the kind of thing I would really compare this to. And I think if that's your lane of music, this album is going to be fantastic for you. I think there's a lot of really bright spots on this album where you kind of got that emotional feeling from the samples that he used, plus the music that he put behind it. You know, I think there was a lot of great moments on this album, but it's hard to judge it in the same way that we normally judge albums here.
It is. And for me, like, the novelty of something like Girl Talk is in seeing, like, okay, how are you going to transition from one very famous ubiquitous song to another, and how are you going to like match these two up? And it kind of like takes you on a ride. I don't mean to make it sound like as goofy, even though I think this guy's one of the greats. It's not as goofy as Weird Al, but it's the same kind of thing where it is in a sense pastiche, because it's making like this longer song out of just like kind of like brilliantly melding all these things that you didn't realize would fit together perfectly, and then you start looking for it in other songs. I don't mean to be like Girl Talk's a genius, but the novelty of Girl Talk doing that kind of thing makes it highly enjoyable to me as a song. As a vibe, Jamie Double X fits more into that category. It's more of a vibe. It's more of a feeling. You need something to be doing. So, like, if this is on at a party that I no longer go to, first of all, I basically went from pretty lame parties to some actually cool ones for a while. Steep drop off back down to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like I can see a cool party in like a cool haunted house. 'Tis the spooky season, and you got like this kind of music going, and people are dancing, and like I see the appeal of it, and I'm not gonna say that it doesn't take talent or he's not talented or even like objectively it's not good, because that's not true at all. It is by definition of being, you know, a song that's being DJ'd, not an original. Like it's an original composition in a sense, but also not really. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
craftsmanship more than anything. Listening to that kind of thing, to me at this point in my life, I'm not doing ecstasy on a Tuesday night anymore. So it's just not something I'm gonna like sit and be with like that. It's good for what it is. I respect its right to exist and will defend it to the death. But if you're like, did you enjoy this? Are you glad you did it? And I guess not to bury the lead again. I'm not ending the discussion. I'm just saying, would you recommend it? Nah, I just can't.
See, I think, and I really understand what you mean with that, because when you think about the types of albums we usually do here, you know, we do a lot of singer songwriter, you know, a lot of band albums, you know, we do electronic artist albums too, but those still carry, like, they're doing the music and the lyrics. You know what I mean? When you think of like a Dua Lipa or something like that, they do the music and the lyrics, and there's, you know, it's not taking other pieces. Well, I guess Dua Lipa is a bad example because she samples all the time, but you know, it's not taking like other pieces of things. It is like, I think it's an artist like putting themselves directly into a piece of that art instead of taking a bunch of things like an Andy Warhol. You know, a lot of his art was based on something else.
Wow,
So
that is
you,
such an apt comparison. Not to
yeah,
cut you off. That's great. I want to point that out.
that that to me I think is more of a comparison to this album. Like this, I can't think of as a musical endeavor the same way I think of like the Zach Bryan album we recently did. Like it just doesn't fit that same bill. But if you want to be in that kind of club scene, if you want to be in that kind of mentality, this is perfect for that, where a lot of the other stuff we talk about isn't. So, you know, this has its time and place. You know, I think for me, you know, I think we've probably got a lot more to talk about, you know, moving on here. So I don't mind kind of ending the discussion about it here. I think if you have liked the Double X or the XX music in the past, you're probably going to love this album. If you aren't into that sort of thing, or you haven't liked the XX in the past, you're probably not going to like this one at all. It doesn't really carry that same sort of narrative driven situation. It doesn't carry the same sort of like concept driven situation that we normally talk about on the show. So for me, I'm going to say, I can't say skip it because I did enjoy it, but I'm going to say stream it, and not in like dead down the middle. Like there's no like leaning by it. You know, it's just stream it. If you like it, you like it, but it's got its very particular place.
See, and the thing for me is it's not even necessarily about narrative, because I will tell you, and everyone will finally give up on me and be like, oh, this guy's just a piece of shit hipster. But a genre that I legitimately, joyously love is Japanese jazz and like Japanese acid jazz. And I wish I could remember any of the guys' names. It feels so disrespectful not to, but there's just some like really barn burner Japanese jazz with like synth into it as well. Like one of the guys does a cover of George Benson's Breezin' on like a synth, and it's absolutely perfect. So I like legitimately love that genre. It's all instrumental. Japanese jazz, no vocals, not in like the strictest definition. So there's also not necessarily a narrative there other than like, I guess, whatever you're envisioning as you listen to it. Cause that's like a certain percentage of people when they're listening to music, like involuntarily, they have to create some kind of visual narrative to go with it. And I'm definitely like that. So album artwork is influential in that way to me. And then the sound, and you just kind of like piece something together. So I can listen to Japanese jazz and be like, yeah, hell yeah. Dudes will see this and go, hell yeah. But I just don't get that same spark. And it's so interesting because like in a lot of instances, the Japanese jazz is using electronic instruments. You can call the samples and the beats, they are electronic instruments. So it is the same thing. It's just there's some kind of heart and soul in the thing I like that isn't present in the thing that I didn't particularly enjoy. And if I'm cast into the fires of hipster hell forever for the things I love, so be it. But I think it's just called a taste profile. I don't think it's any better or any worse than anybody else, but it is mine. There are many like it, but this one is mine. And for that reason, I am going to say unequivocally, because I just don't have the passion for it. So it's not bad, but I can't in good conscience recommend it like I enjoyed it, because it just came and went. So I will give this Jamie XX album in waves. Let's skip it.
I feel like this album did not deserve the beating it just took.
I can't recommend something I'm not enthusiastic about, even if it's not bad. If I wasn't like, if I didn't revisit it more than I needed to for the show, like, can't like be like, yeah, you should do that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's probably a good judge of, because I listened to it a few times and then honestly I hadn't picked it back up. I think I'd listened to it a little bit while I was golfing today, just to be like, okay, let me go back to a few of the pieces I like, but it just didn't excite me enough. I mean, if it's on in the car and I'm on a long road trip, it's probably great for that, where you can just kind of zone out. It's on in the background, great for that. But that's not what we're looking for on this show.
You don't want to do chores. This felt like a chore.
Yeah. And I have some breaking news, Alex. So a man we've talked about many times on this podcast, Sergio Simpson, is doing an ACL live taping. Guess who's going?
Did Wife of the Pod get you tickets?
Wife of the Pod got us tickets to see Sturgill October 28th live at the Moody Theater.
You sons of bitches. That is joyous news indeed. I'm so fucking jealous.
Yeah, he's gonna rip for like 3.5 hours. I think it's gonna be so good. It's gonna be so good.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. And speaking of Wife of the Pod, she attended ACL this past weekend.
I saw that in the Insta stories.
So she saw a girl Dua, said she brought the house down. She saw Chapel Roan, which that crowd was unbelievable. If you folks haven't seen that, go look up ACL Chapel Roan, because unbelievable. She saw a little bit of Sturgill, but I think he's in his Grateful Dead era right now. So I think I think she wasn't loving it, especially at the end of a very long day. She saw Benson Boone, who apparently has a crazy voice, like a Freddie Mercury type kind of voice, like that level, like Adam Lambert, that kind of thing. Sounds like very boring music to me. It's like Jennifer Hudson, like fantastic. They're the Jamie XX of singers, I think.
Wow. Again, with the apt comparisons. Yeah. Cause I don't know. Yeah. Jennifer Hudson, beautiful voice, but I've never for once been like, I can't wait for the new Jennifer Hudson album to go out. She's really doing some interesting and daring things these days.
Like if you need a heat seeking missile to sing the national anthem, she's the one. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
question about it. These days she carries that torch, but it's that's the comparison I give. It's like great to hear while you're hearing it. Never go out of your way for it. And then other breaking news: friend of the pod Axel is attending ACL weekend 2 and will be arriving as we're talking tomorrow morning.
No, motherfucker.
Yes.
Wait, he's gonna be in town from now to the Sturgill show?
No. He's going to ACL this weekend 2.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I got my
Yeah.
little wires crossed there for a minute.
Yeah. So lots of breaking news, lots of big stuff happening down here in Texas.
Hey, everything's bigger in Texas, including the news and the happenings, baby.
Well, what do you say we talk about a little something happening up in Maine? A little
Yeah.
something happening in a 100-mile wilderness from a man, Griffin William Sherry. Now, I will, full disclosure, folks, we have I certainly have like an ancillary connection to this artist. I think you have literally met him and hung out with him in person a few times, from what I understand. So we'll give the folks a little context here. Griffin William Sherry was in a band called the Ghost of Paul Revere, who became extremely popular in the kind of like stomp and holler genre. They decided, for whatever reason, I think a couple of them decided that's not what they want to do with their lives. They decided to break up, and now this is Griffin's solo debut, 100-mile wilderness. Now, what is your when did you get into Ghost of Paul Revere? Like, I have a feeling I know who got you into them, but tell me a little bit about it.
Well, you're exactly correct, Jeff. I guess without drawing in too many people that may or may not want to be associated with this turkey, and I don't mean the album, I mean this podcast and me. I guess I have to speak like somewhat vaguely about it, but we know someone that is close to Griffin William Sherry, and this someone is close to Tanner, and put Tanner onto this music. And of course, Tanner took to it like a duck to water and kind of evangelized it and got me to listen. And I will say at first, I was filled to the brim with antipathy towards Stomp and Holler. I was all stomp and hollered out because it was so big in the mainstream culture for a while. And I just got Mumford and Sons out, and I got Nate Rateliff out. And it's just like people rode it to death. And so when Tanner was like, I'm coming through with what I interpreted to be Stomp and Holler and Ghost of Paul Revere, I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can fit anymore. But I listened to more and more and more, and I realized it was something that's like, for me, and I think for a lot of people, it goes beyond, oh, it's Stomp and Holler. Oh, it's folk, it's Americana. What it is for me is the appeal for me is the fact that it's kind of genre transcendent, and I don't mean to like be a kiss ass about it, but there are certain songs that are bluesier than others, that rock more than others. It's a thing that like Chris Stapleton can do. You can call Chris Stapleton a country artist, but something like White Horse has that DNA, but that's a rock song.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a good song. I love Chris Stapleton, White Horse. This has Ghost of Paul Revere had a similar effect to it. And I will say this album does kind of move more into a singer-songwriter Americana kind of direction. And I don't know how he feels about any of these labels. And I don't want to oversell the relationship to Griffin William Sherry, because I'm what you might call an associate. I'm a tangent. I don't mean to bring down his credibility by associating him with me. He is a real genuine artist. I'm just some guy who met him through some other guy. So, that's what it is. All of that being said, and I truly mean this in not a biased or kiss ass way, my genuine reaction to the music and who he is as a person, I believe in this. I believe in what he's doing. I believe in this music. He is a wonderful dude. I think he's incredibly creative, and I think he's incredibly talented, and humble on top of all of that. So that's my experience with the Ghost of Paul Revere in a nutshell.
So I had listened to, definitely I've listened to more of Ghost of Paul Revere since I've listened to his solo album now. Because I was in the same boat you were. Like I'm still love Mumford and Sons' first few albums and their Wilder Mind album. Like still think they were kind of the cream of the crop when it came to that style of music. You know, it's like the Lumineers a little bit, but then you get to like Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros and like of Monsters and Men and like these other kind of in that same realm kind of bands, and like it got played out very quickly for me. I'll still go back and listen to some of that stuff sometimes, but I think you're accurate in your assessment that goes to Paul Revere. Like I thought it was going to be all just that, you know, all the like, hey, ho, ho, hey, you know, kind of stuff.
Lumineers
And
shit, yeah.
yeah, and it's not, you know, there's definitely aspects to that, and certainly more than what he does on his solo album. But what you can tell in those Ghost of Paul Revere songs, there's a reason they got so popular so fast. Because they are very good. The lyrics are very good. You know, there's more to it than you typically get in that genre of music. You know, it's kind of, I think, who knows how popular they would have gotten overall. You know, I think they probably had a lot more growing to do, but to each their own as far as what they want to do with their lives. I think it's fine because this solo album I thought was extremely good. You know, this is kind of exactly, maybe this is skews a little bit more pop side, kind of like Noah Kahn and that sort of thing, where I'm going to enjoy it when I listen to it. But I like more of the grittier, like the Tyler Childers and like the Zach Bryan, you know, the grittier stuff. But I felt like this had enough in common with those things that I really like, while adding in those big hooks and big melodies that those other artists don't really do a lot. You know, I felt like this was such a good example of Americana. Like if he's okay with the label, or you know, like Griffin, if you hear this, like tell us what label you would consider yourself. But just for simplicity's sake, we'll just say Americana, like kind of rock. And you know, it's definitely got so many like catchy hooks, catchy moments to it, like catchy melodies. The songwriting, if you want to dig into it, it's all there. You know, the emotional pieces of it, the triumphant pieces of it, like it's all there when you want to search for that stuff. If all you want to hear is some good, like easy listening, put on the car as you drive, this is going to fit that bill too. It's pretty rare that you get an album that can do both, because a lot of times when they provide that depth of emotion, that kind of depth of storyline, it tends to be less accessible. The music has a harder time carrying that. I feel like this is such a good like meeting halfway between, of giving you plenty of, you know, the emotional content, the intellectual content that you might want out of this, and plenty of just that good old fashioned like fun. So the fun that you get from the stomp and holler of like the gang vocals and that kind of thing, you still get all that fun here. What you gain more of is, you know, kind of tighter songs, you know, tighter verse chorus kind of situations, leaning a lot more towards that kind of pop rock category. And you get the depth of lyrics that you get from some of the best country songs that you hear these days. So, you know, overall, you know, I wish there were more lyrics available on Genius. There's another suggestion we can make. You know, because I want to know, like, I can hear, obviously he's not like mumbling like Kurt Cobain or anything like that. I can hear the lyrics, but being able to read them as you listen to the song, I feel like it just adds to the comprehension that you get from that. So there's just a few missing. Most of them are up there. There's, you know, a few missing, but a few of the like better songs on the album are the ones that are missing. So I'd love to get those. But I know this is typically not your like cup of tea and genre of music. I feel like, you know, because it's not super experimental and things like that. I feel like this is something that I wouldn't find you, like if I knocked on the door and you didn't know I was coming over, this is not something that I would find you sneaking listening to.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised, because around the time that I had my, I guess you can't call it a renaissance necessarily with country music, but around the time that I expanded my definition of country and got into Sturgill Simpson and like really dove into like, okay, tan lines and tailgates is the shit that's all over the radio. You don't like that, but you do like true artists like Tyler Childers, and how far you want to apply country as a label to Tyler Childers. Again, it's the shit on the radio that put it in a box.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Childers being from a completely different part of the country from Zach Bryan and Casey Musgraves, they're going to have different influences and different executions of country. Tyler Childers is not doing what Sturgill Simpson is doing, is not doing what Zach Bryan is doing. And that's what's so cool about it. So that kind of broadened my appreciation for and definition of country, and then cosmic country and Americana and folk. And I know people like Zach Bryan are like, don't put me in a box, don't call it Americana, don't call it folk. Okay, then we're just going to call it music. We're just going to talk about music, baby. Okay. And this is actually music I listen to. It just has to be, it doesn't have to be experimental. It has to be unique and it needs to be authentic.
Mhm.
And this is really, this album in particular is super authentic, because there are songs about like heartache and woe and uncertainty, and those are great. But then you get a song like Stevenstown,
Mhm.
which again, you talk about hooks on this. When the
Yeah.
sun goes down on Stevenstown, like
Yeah. Fantastic.
Earworm City.
Yeah.
And they're an entire picture, start to finish. He's a really great storyteller through his music. Like if you really listen to it close, this is such a weird connection to draw, but the fact that it's 100 Mile Wilderness, I legitimately in my mind, in my head canon, sometimes are like 100 Acre Wood. And not to make fun of him, but because it is like a feeling of like going on a little adventure through the woods, and maybe Griffin's like spinning you a tall tale to keep you entertained. You know, like it has that. There's no self-seriousness to it, but it treats everything like it has weight. And then like the musicality behind it too. It's the perfect execution of, I guess we'll ride the stomp and holler thing for a minute.
Mhm.
Because they're like, you listen to something like Ghost of Paul Revere, Little Bird, that has all the hallmarks. Like it's got the harmonica, it's literal like stomp and holler and whoa. It's a fantastic song. And to me, it that's palatable because it just keeps doing something different. It's not obnoxious. It just keeps changing it up. I love when an artist will like repeat a chorus or repeat a verse, but do something slightly different. They'll
Mhm.
swing it differently. They'll take different notes and different paths. And I really appreciate that adds such a richness. You're not that concerned with a pattern. You're not that concerned with alienating your audience. It's like, well, they liked this part, so just give them more. You're not afraid to change it up. You're not afraid to switch
Mhm.
direction. And yet this is all like by design. This is again like craftsman like work, and he's a woodsy Maine guy. So I can see him in much the way as like tying his own flies or whittling. I see the same amount of like dedication and craftsmanship goes into the storytelling and goes into the music on this. And it's different than Ghost of Paul Revere in a lot of good ways. A little jarring to a Ghost of Paul Revere fan at first. And then you come to appreciate it as it's broken off and it's done its own thing.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a lot to really, I mean, there's a lot to like with Ghost of Paul Revere. It's still like a little disappointing to see what they could have done, but knowing that you can get something as good as the 100 Mile Wilderness album out of that is almost worth it, because this is definitely more my speed. I think a song like Juliet, if you're going to pick like a good pop song off this album, like I can hear these songs on the radio, the same way you heard that like Philip Phillips. It's like it's not so much different than that, other than the fact that the lyrics are actually good. and he's got, he's like Griffin's got a really, really good voice. There's a lot of things he can do with it. He can get a little bit of that gravel in there, but it can be extremely clean. And the way he works with dynamics with his voice was really, really impressive. This is not just like us doing this album because we kind of, we know people that know this guy. It's not, that was a good reason to do it. But when we talk about it, this is as comparable quality wise, like musicality, as any of the rest of the huge name artists that you've already heard of that we talk about on this show. Like this is somebody that deserves to get a lot more popular with this music. Like if Noah Khan can get as popular as he has, and like credit to him because that album was good, this deserves to be right up there too. Like Griffin's somebody that I'd like to see playing at ACL. I think that's a perfect venue for it. Hopefully, start doing like a festival circuit, because I think this music is so perfect for that. If you're a fan of guitar driven rock and roll, like there's a lot you can dig out of here. If you're a fan of like very soulful vocal ability, there's a lot to like here. if you're a fan of that kind of Americana or the Stomp and Holler, like there's enough accessibility to this album from so many angles that I don't know what kind of person wouldn't like it, to be honest with you. Like it's as good as any easy listening record, but it adds so much more depth to the lyrics that it doesn't feel empty when you listen to it. Like there's always kind of more to pick out, whether it's a new layer of the music, an instrumentation that you didn't hear previously in the song because you were paying attention to something else. To me, there's so many things to like about it that I'm not really able to think of things that I don't like about it. I think there was enough variation song to song. Like it never got too samey throughout the album. I think the album length was perfect. I think the kind of structure of song by song by song and like what followed what was perfect. I think it kind of gave you the right emotional waves throughout the album. Like it would tie together a couple love songs and then a couple of woe is me heartbreak songs, and then you have some just kind of fun party songs. And I think having a mix of all that, there's something on this album everybody's going to like. If you enjoy, there's some people weirdly that just don't enjoy music, that just don't listen to it. Like I have a couple of people that I work with, they're just like, I don't really listen to music,
My
like not even the
sister's one of
radio.
those.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know how you get through life doing that. It's like I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I listen to a lot of music. And I think if you were an appreciator of music and you've liked something similar to this, like you like country music or you like stomp and holler or you like rock and roll, like whatever angle you want to come in from, I think this album has plenty there to get you hooked and start appreciating those other angles too.
Yeah, and there's no reason why this couldn't or shouldn't catch on. And it it's interesting to look at it because again, if you look at this from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, they're clearly like pumping their friends' tires. But again, saying we're friends would be overstating it. He is a guy that I've met, that I know. If we ran into each other in LL Bean up here, we would recognize each other and stop and say hello and chat. But I'm not here to like be a dick rider and be like, well, my good friend Griffin. So we are far enough removed that this is like insofar as all opinions are subjective, this is an objective evaluation of he's ready today. He's ready today. I mean, Ghost of Paul Revere was right there, and he hasn't missed a beat. He's poured his heart and soul into this, and it shows. And there's no reason why he shouldn't or couldn't hit. And the thing is, bro, Griffin, if you are watching this, I know that you got the Pink Pony Club cover going. You absolutely need to do the Wheatus Teenage Dirtbag cover that you did at Stone Mountain. I saw you there a couple months ago. This is a direct appeal. I don't know if you'll ever see this. You did Teenage Dirtbag at Stone Mountain, and it was so fucking good. It brought the house down. It brought me to my feet. I was in the balcony. You got to do it. That if he does something like that, if Griffin does that song, that will catch fire. That's an out on that line, Garen goddamn T. He is very deserving of whatever success he has coming out of this, and I hope that this is the spark that starts a brush fire as majestic and orange as his beard.
Yeah, this is for me. This is like absolutely a buy it. I wonder, is it out on vinyl?
I don't think yet.
I mean, I'll get it. I'm sure it's on a CD or something like that, but I'll get it in some form or fashion because it's that good. It's definitely one I want to have for the collection. I'd put it right up there, honestly. Like, I don't know if I'd put it up quite with like Sailor's Guide to Earth or those, because those albums are like monuments in my musical world. But it's close. I mean, it's like for me, this is as good of an album as we've done recently on this podcast. I think it's something in this genre that can very easily get boring, can very easily get very repetitive over the course of a whole album. This does not. I think this is as like hearty and full-hearted of a buy it as I think I've given anything recently.
Well, and I'll go so far as to put him up there with a Jason Isbell, because I agree that something like a lot of what Sturgill's doing, like Sturgill's a giant, and to me, Tyler Childers is a giant, and particularly with the example of Sturgill, he's doing so many different things and pushing into so many different dimensions and genres that that's part of why he's created these monuments, because
Mhm.
there's this like massive anticipation for like what he's going to do next. Dude and Juanita versus, you know, the Sound and Fury versus Johnny Blue Skies. It's all a little bit of something different. And so that's like a tactical advantage that Sturgill has turning into a monument. But Griffin William Sherry and Jason Isbell sharing a bill makes all the sense in the world for me.
Mhm.
At this point, I could see that being a great move as if Jason Isbell got Griffin to open for him. I hear it. It's like a perfect marriage on that level. It's that good. I love Jason Isbell. It is that good. If you
Mhm.
love Jason Isbell too, you will absolutely love it. If you want to catch someone that, like, again, the synthesis of this whole thing is I believe in him. He he's a talented guy. He's a nice guy. It has nothing to do with having met him. I believe in Billie Eilish. I believe Billie Eilish is not, you know, some industry plant. I
Mhm.
believe in Harvey Dent, and I believe in Griffin William Sherry. This is a as soon as it's pressed, I'm gonna get it. This is a resounding buy it.
Mhm. Yeah, maybe we'll get our man Tanner to get us some autographs.
There we go.
Yeah, because I think I signed one of this, and I think the comparison to Jason Isbell is a good one.
Did you hear about the autograph that Griffin gave out earlier in the summer?
No.
Friend of the show, who shall remain unnamed, but does listen to the show, as far as I can, last I knew, uh, went to Griffin's show at Zen Barn in Stowe. Great venue. Went to Griffin's Zen Barn show and had a couple pops, a couple soda pops, a little bit of loudmouth soup, a little bit of grandpa's cough medicine, doing a little sucking back on that. You know what I'm saying? And in his altered, elevated state, he asked Griffin to draw. I believe I'm paraphrasing, but the fattest, biggest, meatiest cock you can. And Griffin said, "Ari," and I wasn't here for this. This is just a legend, as relayed to me by several different people, like like it was Rashomon. Draw a big, meaty dick. You sure, man? Yeah, I want you to do it. Okay. And then he proceeded to draw a monster. The man's an artist. Man's an artist. And instead of getting his, what I'm sure is a beautiful signature and a memento that he can someday sit down and share with his young child and say, this is Griffin William Sherry, and your dad met him, and you've seen him everywhere. He's bigger than titanium, sliced bread. I don't know what's valuable these days. Lithium ion batteries, whatever. This would be a nice moment for him and his child. Unfortunately, he has precluded that by letting the man draw a giant dick on the album.
Well, I'll go ahead and name him. I know that was Brandon. I did not hear the story before now, but I know. I'll name him.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
It was
Brandon.
It was either going to be Brandon or Garrett. And you said small child, and I was like, bingo.
Yeah. We just played the music game, and Brandon, you lost, dude.
And also that it absolutely sounds like something he would do.
Oh, so yeah, it's not like, dude, what the fuck? Why did you say anything? It's like anyone could paw through your records and see that you've got an album with a giant honking schlong on it. That's not my fault. Telling people about it isn't my fault. You thought it was a great idea at the time, bro.
Yeah, that's classic. Well, folks, go listen to the Griffin William Sherry album. You can go listen to the Jamie XX one if you want to, but definitely go listen to the Griffin William Sherry album. 100 Mile Wilderness got double buy it from Out on That Line after a lackluster stream it / skip it on the first album. So big improvement throughout the show. Big improvement between albums. Go check it out. Comment down below. And Alex, do you have any other closing thoughts for this week?
I have nary a thought in my head, nor a mouth with which to say it. I'm just some dumb guy. And if I keep talking, it's like Mark Twain said, or maybe it was Hemingway, thus proving my point. Just shut the fuck up sometimes and know when to walk away, or everyone's going to think you're dumb.
I think they both actually said that at different points.
Yes, and handled it in very different ways.
Yeah. Well, folks, until next time.